Hello, my name is Greg, and I learned two things while processing chickens in over 100-degree weather. First, 23 chickens is too many to do by yourself. And second, when it's over 100 degrees and a chicken farts, it really stinks. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Well, today is chicken processing day. Last year, I did about 70 to 75 birds, and I hand plucked every one of those. And after about the 50th bird, I said, I'm never hand plucking after this season. So I went on Facebook Marketplace, and there were several for sale, but this one was only 40 bucks for the day. So I just rented that one, and I'm busy getting set up here, but I want to go ahead and get the fire started so we can get the water up to the temperature that it needs to be. Now, we got a whole bunch of rain last night, so if you look closely down there, there's cotton balls, and I soaked them in Vaseline. And in case you don't know, that starts fire pretty easily. I'm hoping I can get this to take off and getting this water up to temperature. Get some of those on top and get them drying out some. All right, looks like that's gonna get going. I just checked the temperature and it's supposed to be, I think they said 276 degrees today. So I set up my little shade tent and we're gonna finish getting set up here. I've got to go get some ice. We're gonna go through a lot of ice today. So the plan is we're going to put them in the kill cone. I've got buckets set up. I decided to go ahead and purchase the kill cones. What I've done in the past is just hang them up with a gambrel like you do a rabbit or something and just dispatch them that way. But I decided to go ahead and do the kill cones, and that ought to save a little bit of time. A little bit of water down there, just help keep the clean up. Then we'll go put them in the water to the plucker onto that table where we will eviscerate them. Then we'll get a cooler set up right in the shade here with some ice water in there, and we'll let them sit for a couple of days. We're about ready to get started. I have to go get some ice, and that should be it. When I'm gone, the water should get up to temperature. We're gonna go ahead and get started. I have these gloves. They're actually slice proof, and I always have all kinds of cuts and nick on my hands, and it's inevitable. Every time I process chickens, I always end up cutting my finger, and I'm always afraid I'm gonna start clucking, acting like a chicken when I get the chicken blood in me. If you heat water this way, one little tip that I don't think I'll charge you for. Nah, I'm gonna give it to you for free. But what happens is the water, when you go to check it, see it's showing 161 degrees, 159. But it took me a long time to learn this, and that is stir your water, because the warmer water is at the bottom. So now look, it's 160, 167, 68. So we'll add a little bit of water, get it cooled down some. There's 148. I'm gonna add a little bit more water because by the time I dispatch them, it ought to be just about right. So if you raise Cornish cross, you'll see these birds are not real big. We'll give them a minute just to chill out. First time I'm wearing these gloves, and I told you I always have cuts on my hand, and I just happen to have one right where I always cut it accidentally when I'm processing bird. Very excited to have these on. So you see these chickens are nice and calm. There we go. All right, temperature's 142, that's pretty good. One thing that I learned from hand plucking chickens, and if you've ever scalded any chickens before, you'll know that the breast meat is the most tender as far as the feathers coming out. So I see a lot of people grabbing them by the leg and dipping them into the water. But the legs, the thighs, and the wings are what needs to be in that scalding water the longest for the feathers to come out easily. So I like grabbing them by the head, and then that puts the legs, the thighs, and the wings in that scalding water a little bit longer than what that breast meat is in there for. And it just makes it where you don't risk cooking that breast meat in order to get the legs and the wing feathers out. Into the plucker we go. Well, I can say with all sincerity, I'm never hand plucking another chicken. I don't like to leave the birds in there the whole time, even just taking them out for that couple of seconds. Lets it cool down so you're not quite cooking the birds. The steps I take, I think, are pretty standard among people who process chickens, but I twist the head off, flip the bird over, remove the oil gland, and if you've never cleaned a chicken before, it's very noticeable. It's a deep yellow color. And then I pick the legs up and bend them so that the entire weight of the chicken is on that joint. And I just kind of set my knife on top of that, and it cuts right through where that joint is, so you'll have a nice rounded edge. And sometimes I do this step first, which is moving the crop, the esophagus, and the windpipe. It's a little slippery, so I usually try to dig my fingernail up under there and grab a hold of the crop and the windpipe, and then the esophagus is next to both of those. And if you sit down to do this, an apron is absolutely necessary. You see, for cleaning the table, cleaning your knife, and whatever other tools are there. When you have that skin taut, you can tell if you have a sharp knife, it should just slice right through that very easily. Mine kind of got hung up on that membrane, so I just swiped it several times to bring that blade back. And for me, the goal is to get the gizzard and the liver out. And the reason I want to do that is the gall bladder is kind of in there with the liver. So I want to get that away from the meat as quickly as possible. So if it bursts, it just falls down into the bucket. And I just threw the liver in there, and now we're going to make 3 cuts right along the vent, and that will allow some of the remaining viscera to fall into the bucket. We just need to get the heart and the lungs out at this point. I have yet to find a way that works for me for taking these wingtips off. Sometimes I use the clippers, sometimes I use my knife. Seems whenever I use my knife, it really dulls the blade. So if you have any tips or pointers, let me know. All right, we have 6 birds done. Let's go get another batch. These guys get harder and harder to catch as they get fewer and fewer in the cages. They kind of wise up to the shenanigans. I have to change the hinge on this one. You see that one opens that way? This one opens the opposite way, and I don't like it. So the idea of doing 6 at a time, I had 23 birds, and when I go to do that last batch, I thought I could trick myself and only have 5 in there. Okay, that water is definitely too hot. About a little over 150, 153. Put down a little bit more. All right, that's about 138, so there's a fire going. So by the time I get these ready to be in there, it should add a couple of degrees. Since I have 2 cones, I grabbed 2 birds. I let them sit in here for a minute just to let them calm down, and that gives me a chance to drop my knife in the blood bucket. This part coming up is either one of the funniest things that has ever happened to me, or it could be the most disgusting. But after I dispatch this bird on the right, I go over to the one on the left, and he gets revenge for all the other Cornish cross that were processed this day. And for your viewing pleasure, and at the expense of my humiliation, I not only slowed this down, but I also zoomed in so you could clearly see what happens when chickens take revenge. With the accuracy of a Tomahawk cruise missile, he fires, and it's a perfect strike. But I didn't have a mirror out here, and I didn't know what was on my face until after I'd come back to edit the videos. Yep, he showed me exactly what he thought about me. If you're only wearing one glove, you have to remember not to stick this hand in there. All right, we have a little bit of rain coming down, which will be nice. I'm sure that'll throw the humidity up to 6,000%. I missed that one. I keep these out here just in case I miss any of those joints. I can then get them to where they're rounded off. I am not removing the oil gland here. Even with the plucker, sometimes those very tips on the tail feathers are difficult for the plucker to get out. So I just take my knife and pull on them. Okay, right here, this is always, for me, one of the parts that I don't like, and that is removing the crop, the windpipe, and the esophagus. So the crop is real slick and slimy, and attached to the crop is the esophagus. And then the windpipe is in there, and it kind of reminds me of that corrugated 4-inch pipe for drainage. Sometimes I get lucky and my thumb slips right in behind the crop and the esophagus and it pops right out. And other times it just takes some finagling to get the windpipe, the esophagus, and the crop out. And I like to reach in there, grab as much as I can, and pull everything out, particularly getting that green sac out of there. So in case that does burst, it's outside of the consumable meat. And the worst that can happen is if that gallbladder breaks, then the liver probably should not be saved. And once again, we have 3 cuts on each side of the vent, one on each side and one down through the middle where the portion of the visceral that is attached will fall into the bucket. You know, if you know you're going to cut these up, you don't have to spend a lot of time cleaning these out, because you go to cut the backbone out, all the junk is exposed and you're not going to save it anyhow. So I keep some whole birds and cut up some others, so I try to do a decent job cleaning them out. That goat doesn't shut up. We're going to be processing goats. There's the windpipe and esophagus. I like to stick my finger in there and get that windpipe and esophagus as clear as possible, so it hopefully will come out when we pull everything else out. Just like that. There we go. I'm gonna make dog food out of this one. See how the skin's a little white? Means the water was too hot. Just too bad, because that bird cleaned up pretty nice. All right, where are we? All right, I just had to spray myself down. After that rain came through, it got really, really hot. I have about 7 more birds to do, and I just realized I haven't gone through my entire process. So we'll go ahead and go do that now. Of course, the birds are already dispatched, so we'll start with the scalder. Might not have been long enough. I'm gonna do a couple more dips. Still wasn't quite long enough in the scalding tank, but see, these feet weren't quite ready. But after you hand pluck an entire chicken, who knows how many times. Picking off a few feathers doesn't seem to be much problem. So I removed the head and the feet. I like to stick my finger down here and just make sure everything's loose, but yet still attached. I like to get this gallbladder out right away and then take the heart, liver, and kidneys. All right, I'm ready for a break. I'm gonna get this one done, and I have to get the goats moved. Oh, well, I have to do those that are in there first. There is no way for me to confirm this, but I'm wondering if this is the bird that tried to take me out with the Tomahawk cruise missile. When that failed, he decided to come in with a cluster bomb. Boom! Yeesh. All right, another bird done. After this bird, I decided I needed a break. All right, I'm back after a little break. After that rain, it just got scorching hot. Plus, I wanted to clean the water, so I got that going again. Okay, that's like 1:38, so that should be good by the time we get them going. So obviously the first part is dispatching them. So I tuck their wings in and then just toss them in there. And this part is never fun or exciting, but it does have to be done. Sometimes they don't cooperate, and neither would I. So you try to get a good slice right along in between the feathers to get a good bleed. This one has his feet out, his neck out. We're gonna give him just a second to calm down. All right, and again, try to get a good slice right in between. Make sure this water hasn't got too hot. We're at 141, that ought to work. I could have used a little bit more time in the scalder, but when you've hand plucked chickens for years, getting a chicken with these on them is just not a big deal. First thing head comes off, it will break right where it's supposed to. And we just removed the oil gland. It's right on the top side of the tail. Windpipe and esophagus are both free. I always reach in here and just unhook the gizzard from that membrane and then go in. What I want to make sure is that I have the liver, which is right there, along with this green sac right here, and make sure, ooh, that busted right when I pull the liver off for dog food. Bring all that back up on the table, cut on each side of the vent, and up through the bottom, and all that comes off. Now we just need the heart, lungs, which they're behind a little membrane in there. That's pretty much it. I take the wing tips off, and I use these, and I just put some pressure on it and just kind of cut. And once you do it a couple of times, you'll find out where that joint is. And I don't hit it every time, but there's a second bone here. You got that main bone on the wing. I usually try to cut that second bone back so you get a nice smooth edge. And if by chance, see, like that time I missed a joint, I take and I cut that down. I cut that bone down so the edge is smooth and it won't put a hole in my bag. You can see Beans licking his lips here. This is about the longest he's had to wait for any treats from the chickens. There we go. These birds are really small, and even if they taste better, I won't do them this early. I think when you get used to doing the larger birds, this just seems more difficult. But that's nice and round right there first. There you go, ready for the freezer. All right, I think I have 3 birds left. I'm tired, it's been hot, but I'm gonna go grab them. All right, it's always exciting when you take these chickens and you get them moved from the brooder into the chicken track. That's always a good day. The next best day when you're processing birds is when the chicken tractors are empty and there's only this remaining to be processed. So we're gonna go ahead and knock these last 3 out, get cleaned up, and go inside in the air conditioning. What I have found using a fire is that if I let it get to 145, it cooks the bird. So I do about 130. So I just stirred it, and that's 127. So let's see if 127 degrees is enough to get these feathers off. I believe it's cooking the bird. Look at that skin. So these are probably going to be dog food. Oh, last one going in. Feel good, beans. Perfectly clean. We have our last bird ready to go into the scald. The water might be a little cool. Well, let's see how she does. Wasn't quite hot enough. So as you can see, it didn't quite get hot enough. So this, the head came off, is just gonna be dog food. When I just saved the breast meat, that's what I would do. Skinless breast, and then just cut right down through there. Not a very good looking liver. There's all the heart and lungs, and when you piece it out, all that just goes away. Then you cut these rib bones right here. These are cut with a knife. There we go. That felt good. So good, I'm going to do it again. Whew, it's hot. All right, I've got to go get some ice. Obviously, when it's 682 degrees outside, you need a lot of ice. Look who's watching me. Hey, Casper. All right, it always feels good to finish a big job like this, but then comes the cleanup. That has to be done. All right, that green cooler is going to hold all of the human consumption chickens. Gonna let that water drain out of there. I probably should have waited. I don't know if I can lift this cooler. Oh, nope, definitely can't. All right, gotta do something about that. All the dog food I'm gonna make. All right, I was just out processing these chickens. I did the dog food, and it just seems to me like it's too hot out there and it's not safe handling of meat. I decided to bring it inside and do the rest of it inside. So let me go get the other dog food, and we're going to vacuum seal the dog meat until I get that meat grinder clean. And then I'm going to quarter some up for us, and then I'll also shrink wrap some full chicken. So I brought in some gloves just because I have so many cuts on my hand that it's kind of a pain. Anyhow, so we are going to go ahead and seal this, and I don't know how many it's going to take. Oh, we just put this in here until that light is solid. There we go. So that side is done. For some reason, both of these sides are done. I must have sealed that the last time. All right, same process, though we... All right, there's some dog food. All right, we are going to start quartering out our chickens and then shrink wrap them. So there's several ways you can cut up your chicken for storage. I do it different ways at different times. So I'm gonna cut right there and then break that joint. This will give you the leg and the thigh. So I like to do these at the same time. So on your leg and thigh, there's a piece of fat right there. Some friends of ours stopped by, and I have 3 birds left to quarter up. He asked, how long will it take you to do those 3 birds? I said, I have no idea, but when I do them, I'll time myself and let you know. So stay tuned, and I will let you know how long it takes me to cut up 3 chickens. I'm already at a disadvantage. I forgot to put on my other glove. All right, let's check the time. 7 minutes and 28 seconds. And as always, thanks for watching.